Now and again, we are graced with a legend or two in this building at the top of the tower. This is the Chris Evans Breakfast Show on Virgin Radio UK. We're live from the top of the tower. It's the most rock and roll breakfast, and now it's going to get even more rock and roll. Vassos, I guess it's time for a superstar guest this morning.
Our next guest is an actor, comedian, writer, musician, and the phrase national treasure may actually have been invented to describe him. His new tour, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, hits the UK in September, so please welcome someone who's both a stratospheric idol and actual Eric Idle.
All right. I would say maybe not national treasure, maybe our first ever international treasure. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you, Chris. Nice to see you.
Oh my gosh. By the way, we're streaming this live. If you want to see this, you can watch us now live via the Virgin Radio app. If you have it, just press watch live and you can see Eric in the flesh. You've been in the UK for a while. You were gigging with Brian Cox, Professor Brian Cox, on, what was that, Monday night?
Yes.
Where was that? What was going on?
We were playing at Pembroke College, Cambridge.
Yeah.
Because Ray Dalby left them a lot of money. He was a graduate. They built this huge courtyard and there were naming places. So we decided that they should name something the Idle Cox Pier.
Yes.
And then so we went to do that. But it doesn't go down to the river. So we learned, to our sad, very sad.
Yeah.
So eventually they named the Idle Cox Cupboard.
Oh, so you've got a cupboard?
Yeah, we got our own cupboard.
And the pier's work in progress, maybe?
Well, they were going to put one on the duck pond.
Yeah. Wow. I know Brian pretty well, not as well as you do. He's always been a huge fan of yours. When did your eyes first meet?
We met in LA, and we came to a recording of a play of mine called What About Dick, which had Eddie Izzard and Billy Connolly, every single funny English person. And he's such fun. I mean, he's really nice and enjoyable, and he likes a good laugh.
He loves a good laugh, doesn't he?
I've been on the Monkey,
Yeah, of course you have.
Cage, yeah.
And you're proper friends now, aren't you?
Because he came to stay with us in France, and then he bought a house near us. So we're neighbours, and so July and August we hang out.
And you stay with him when you bunk over at his, do you?
I was down there, yeah. It's nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
And of course he's a musician, and you get playing
together. Well, we had a bit of a ding dong because I always have a ding dong.
Yeah.
We love them. We have them in LA all the time.
So you have this tour. It's in September. It's the first time that Eric has toured live really since the 70s. September 10th, Birmingham Symphony Hall. Eric Idle is coming to get you whether you like it or not. September the 12th, Brighton Centre. September the 14th, Liverpool Empire. The 18th, Manchester Bridgewater Hall. September the 20th, Glasgow at the Armadillo. September the 22nd, Edinburgh Playhouse. September the 24th, Bournemouth IC. And September 27th, the London Royal Albert Hall. So this is a one-man show. Before we get onto this one-man show, when you and Brian hook up and you do this sort of ad hoc, spontaneous pop-up thing, you could take that on tour. I mean, how do you get that together?
It's very expensive. Brian,
Right.
no, he's very, very expensive. I saw him in LA. He was just on LA.
I know.
I mean, he has a screen a million miles wide.
It's ridiculous.
And he talks for 2 hours. So,
Yeah.
But I did do it once for him at Wembley.
Right.
I came on in a pink suit and sang the Galaxy song for him.
Yeah.
But this was just a special fun. But we always show the bit where he's run over by Professor by Professor Hawking.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Yeah, of course it is. EricIdle.com is where you need to go for these tickets. All right, so always look on the bright side of life live. Da, 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 da. Can you give us the headlines? Can you give us the elevator pitch of what happens here, if you don't mind, Mr. Idle?
It's like a one-man musical. I mean, I have a virtual band because I recorded the things, and so if I play live, they play live, and we sing a song together. So it's not just me; you can play a song with them, and they're very nice. And even Mickey Dolenz pops in for a minute or two. Yeah, no, it's
pretty
good fun.
cool, man.
Yeah.
And they say it's comedy, music, philosophy, and one fart joke, just the one.
Yeah. Two would be too many.
Yeah, I mean, does it always come? Is it scheduled or is it spontaneous?
No, it's not ad-lib.
Is it spot the fart joke?
No, there's a certain point where it appears,
right,
and it's appropriate.
It's appropriate. I love that.
Yeah, nothing inappropriate.
All right, philosophy. Tell us about the philosophy that shines through, because there's always been a philosophy around you. That's why people engage with you so much. Yes, you will always be a Python, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Well, I mean, the philosophy to me, I've got this idea that which I call mock and roll, because at the time where all of our lot were at the same age as the Beatles and the Stones and everything, so we're the same generation. So I've got this idea that Python became the first rock and roll group, mock and roll group, because we went on the road and we toured and we ended up at the Hollywood Bowl. Yeah. And so I like this concept of mock and roll, and we were also sponsored by rock and roll. Our first film was paid for by, Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Jethro Tull. And the second film, Brian, is entirely paid for by George Harrison.
Yeah.
So I talk a bit about how they interconnect and how we were saved by them, and it's like some stories and some jokes, and what it's like to be a comedian.
Yeah, Life of Brian. I mean, I still, it's so punk, because you were pre-punk, and then you were sort of contemporaries, and sort of, parallel with punk. And you talked about the Beatles and the Stones, and then you talked about Zeppelin. Of course, there you're mentioning 60s and 70s, and you were lucky enough to have a foot in not both camps, but all the camps, weren't you? Because you were there for the whole thing. What did you sense of? I mean, what a time! What a time! Just speak about that a bit. Just getting chills just talking about it.
Well, I became a great pal of George Harrison.
Yeah.
He picked me up. He grabbed me at a screening of Holy Grail. He said, "I've been looking for you." I said, "Let's go and smoke a roof." And we talked all night. We just, and it was very interesting. We talk about our groups.
Yeah.
He said, "So, what was your John like?" I said, "Well, what was your John like?"
Yeah.
So it was very interesting because we play similar roles in our groups between powerful blocks.
Yeah.
And we're the little lonely ones, in the middle.
That's interesting. So, did you have a natural affinity with George then?
We just found it was just a love affair from then on. We just had so much fun.
Because when we were watching the brilliant recent Beatles documentary, Get Back, I didn't realise how instrumental, forgive the pun, that Ringo was in the peacemaking,
Right.
and George was more feisty than I imagined him to be. And did you recognise that in the Beatles and also in your gang?
Well, I was post-Beatle with him.
Yeah.
By the time I met him, it was 75, I think, he had stopped being a Beatle and he was a gardener up in Henley. That's what he mainly did. But because I could play guitar, this is my big ace in the hole. I played guitar since I was 12, so I could hang out. We could play all night, and people would come in, and they come and Deep Purple would come and play. People would come and play. And it was great. I could hang out with the Stones. I could sit with Keith and play. It was really good fun.
I mean, come on.
It was nice because we were all the same generation.
Yeah.
It's just they went off at 16 and we stayed on at university till we were 92,
And the great thing about any gig in this business, which is why it's such a great business to be in, is it gets you on the other side of the ropes, doesn't it? So you don't have to pay to get in. You're paid and you're on the right side of the ropes. And of course, with comedy, especially where you came from and the gang that you were with, that gets you into everybody else's party, like Keith Richards,
They actually rather pursued us rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
It was interesting. And they said, "Well, how come you met all these people?" And I said, "Well, when you're in the circus, you do tend to meet the other clowns."
Yeah, and the jugglers.
And you are in the same business, really.
And then living in Los Angeles,
right?
It's a whole different level. I'm not saying it's a high level, but it's a different level. So, who's been to the House in the Hills over the years? What kind of nights have you had there?
Well, we have wonderful nights. We had, George and Ringo played once. We have Jeff Lynne. You have Joe Walsh. They'll come in and now I play with Mickey Dolenz. He comes and so we always have a ding dong.
Yeah,
because it's great fun.
Now I know that you're Eric Idle. I know that, right? And you are definitely Eric Idle. But because you're not a musician, like they are. Please tell them you still get starstruck when all this stuff happens to you.
Oh, it's fantastic. The other night we were playing, and one of the bloody Beach Boys, came and played. and you're sitting there going, "Oh my God!"
Where were you playing? At your house or at a club?
Somebody else's house, a friend's house. We'd done a charity show for the fires, and Al, John, came in, and
so you do a show, and then you go back to somebody's house.
Then but every week we try and have a ding dong. I play with Puddles, the clown. He's 6'8" clown,
right.
And Weird Al. I don't know whether people know Weird Al much here.
Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's fantastic. He plays only the accordion. So we'll be playing, Runaway and things like that, and he'll be playing the solo on the accordion.
That's why it's great to be able to do something, isn't it? Because you can have a party where everybody gets drunk and you have a bit of a laugh, but if you can all do something...
Oh, it's so fun.
Well, I mean,
fun. People just join in, and you give people shakers and crackers.
And is it always the same kind of format? Do you know that's the kind of night you're going to have when people
we'll
pitch?
Go for a ding, definitely. So we'll have a meal and a ding-dong.
Meal and a ding-dong. So you'll go out for a meal?
No, the meal will be in. We'll go to somebody's house, and then they have your food, and then...
Too much fun, Eric. You're having too much... It's not fair on the rest of us.
Well, everybody can play. I think people do like to sing. Yeah, they used to be in pubs. You just have to sing along.
I know.
So
I think Joanna.
Yeah, they have chains of songs that would go from one to the other.
Yeah.
And I used to try and learn those because they were great.
CD&G is responsible for a lot of those, isn't it? Bebop Balula goes into All My Love, All My Kissing, goes into Hound Dog, goes into Blue Suede Shoes. But you can get on a roll.
That was the big change for us. I mean, I was at a boarding school in Wolverhampton, romantic place. and
by the way, you go a bit more brummy when you say Wolverhampton.
Wolverhampton, yeah, very nice. Well, I lived in Studley, which is below Birmingham.
Dudley.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, what saved our lives was Elvis. And he just came into our lives. You go, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Finally.
Tell us about the first time you ever heard / saw Elvis Presley.
Well, he was on telly, and they would only shoot him above the waist because they didn't want to show what he was doing with his legs.
Too suggestive.
Shaking around a bit. Very suggestive.
Yes.
Yes, but he was suddenly he was on our side, and then we had Buddy Holly and the Everleys, and it was great. That was just rock and roll, and we listened to Radio Luxembourg.
Right.
And we even made little crystal sets so we could listen to them.
The Great 208 from the Grand Duchy in Luxembourg.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
Yeah. You could hardly hear it at times.
If you could have, I mean, you wouldn't swap any of this for the whole universe, let alone the world. But if you could have chosen at the time to be a rock and roll star or a comedy star, would you have gone? I presume you would have gone. You probably thought you were going to go music, didn't you?
No, I never be. I wrote a song called "I'm Too Old to Be a Popular Star,"
Right.
Because you only have a shorter career,
right.
Because pop is very. Even once I met Joni Mitchell, and I said, "How's it going?" She said, "Oh, it's all right, but I wish I need a hit." And you go, "You don't need a bloody hit. You're Joni Mitchell, you idiot."
Joni Mitchell.
I see her a lot. I go for ding dongs at her place.
Oh,
too.
come on!
I do. It's fantastic.
She's got her own festival, hasn't she, Joni Mitchell?
She's revived, and
she plays 3-hour sets still. I understand. I hear that she can play a 3-hour set still. Joni Mitchell.
She's fantastic. She was very ill. She had collapsed and had a very bad time. We spent one New Year's Eve together in wheelchairs side by side.
No, you did not.
But we still had the ding dong. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Did you meet Bob Dylan? Have you met Bob Dylan?
I met Bob Dylan from time to time, as far as one can.
Right, interesting.
He's from a different planet.
Yes.
But he is interesting.
Okay,
I was actually in a Wilbury Twist video with John Candy.
Oh, wow.
And I was standing behind Dylan. And when they're filming, you're supposed to find the camera.
Yeah.
So I'd go a little bit left, and he'd go a little bit left.
No.
And I'd go a bit right. And you've got eyes in the back of his head. So it's your bloody video. I don't care if I'm in it.
Oh, my gosh.
But
of course, he was at Wilbury, wasn't he, with George?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when I did one of the Saturday Night Lives, he was the guest host. And it was very weird. He asked Tanya, my wife, to make sure... If there wasn't, he said, "Will you go upstairs and see if there's somebody waiting outside my bedroom door?" And she went up to check, and I said, "We can find someone if you like."
Yeah.
but he was he's wonderfully weird and
And so you talk about Saturday Night Live there. You keep dropping these wonder bombs in, and I know you're Eric Idle. I know that, but I still find it wonderful on your behalf, if that's okay, because people love you, Eric, and you're always so nice to everyone, and you've always been current and you've always been on it. Do you have any wisdom that you can impart to the rest of us? Do you have an overarching sort of 12-word life philosophy?
Well, I'm very lucky. I had pancreatic cancer about 2019, and I should be dead.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've got a big reprieve, and so life is just fantastic.
Yeah, no, I get that, but let's get onto that. I promise I'm not going to. I really want to get into that, because pancreatic cancer. That I had like the best cancer you can get. Nobody wants to get cancer, but I had cancer that was in situ. So it was the lowest risk cancer ever. It could have moved, but it didn't move. Pancreatic cancer is one of the worst. But before that, you still had this wonderful outlook on life.
I think it's because I spent 12 years in boarding school in Wolverhampton.
Right.
So everything's better after that.
It's like every day's like winning the lottery.
You're no longer in boarding school.
And then you find yourself in Monty Python, and then you make movies that everybody loves, and then you...
But I met them at Cambridge, you see, all that lot.
Yeah.
It was very weird. In my first term at Cambridge, I was auditioning for the College Review.
Yeah.
I'm being auditioned by Tim Brooke-Taylor and Bill Oddie.
Right.
Two of the goodies are auditioning me.
Yeah.
And then they give me a sketch, and I do it. It's written by John Cleese.
Oh, my gosh.
So, what chance did I have? So after that, I gave up English and just did comedy.
Was that the first time you saw the name John Cleese on that script?
Yeah, no, I mean, he was just he was undergraduate.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Can you give us a five sort of tentpole highlight of your career? So there was Cambridge, the Cleese script.
Yes.
Let's call the Cleese script one of them.
Right. And then we were dragged into the David Frost tent, and we wrote for the Frost Report. And it was wonderful. We were young writers, and we had Marty Feldman was the script editor, and all these great writers were there, Barry Cryer, and it was just lovely because, we were writing comedy, you're all on the same side.
Yeah. David Frost, I mean, we've got a lot to thank David Frost for, which people don't realise today.
I thanked him once on the radio, and he cried.
Did he?
He gave me a hug and cried.
And he was right up until the end, then he had those famous summer parties, didn't he? He was a real bon vivant. He's a real connector, wasn't he?
He was a connector. And, he did very good. And, we used to write, he used to say Frost on Wednesday, Frost on Thursday, Frost on Friday, and you go in and write for him.
Yeah.
And he set up the last 1948 show for Cleese and people. And
So let's go. So Cleese, Frost.
All right.
Next.
Python then we did a kids show called Do Not Adjust Your Set.
Yeah, of course you did.
That's with Michael Penn and Terry Jones, and I wrote that, and David Jason was in it.
Yeah, and you've been doing kids shows ever since.
Thank you very much.
Just for grown-ups. It's true though, isn't it?
It's true though.
It's so true. What about how did the first movie get made?
The first movie was just somebody, Victor Lowndes, wanted to make he said it wouldn't go in America, so they just filmed some of the best sketches. And it was pretty crappy. It was now for something completely different.
Right.
But the real movie, the first one we started, was The Holy Grail. And we wrote that. And as I say, we got paid. It got made because of all these rockers who were big stars.
Yes, that was George Harrison and his partner.
George didn't pay for the first one. It was Plant and Page.
Of course it was.
And
Fella Brummy.
Yeah. And then Pink Floyd were there, and Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson, and all the record companies, Charisma Records. They all put money in.
Yeah.
And they didn't want it back. They didn't want to read the script. They just want to see the film.
They just want to be part of it, part of the gang, part of the vibe. And it's funny, isn't it? Because then, I mean, George Martin, famously the Beatles producer, he sort of cut his cloth making comedy albums, didn't he?
He's a cellist.
And Hancock and all that stuff. Right. And your comedy was very sort of vinyl friendly, wasn't it?
Yes, we started to make albums. Well, first of all, we made a BBC album. It's only in mono. It was pretty poor. Yeah. And then we'd go into Radio Luxembourg and record albums in there.
Wow.
And then, my favourite was we made a 3-sided album.
Right.
It was called, I can't remember, it was Matching Tie and Handkerchief.
Beautiful.
And if you put the first side on, that's fine. You turn it over, play the second side, and it was only 10 minutes long. And then you might play it again. It's all the different sorts of sketches.
Beautiful.
And we started with the same gag, so they would never tipped off. So people, what the hell's going on?
Wow. It's like those, do you remember those horse racing albums you could get?
That was where Terry got the idea from, on a 78.
Right, so for people who don't know what we're talking about, like, which is everybody else that's on this floor apart from you and I, what the heck are we talking about with these horse racing albums?
Well, we had 78s, and depending on where the needle dropped, the grooves were intertwined, so a different horse would win the race.
You used to have racing nights. My mum used to put them on.
Really?
Yeah, and you get the horse racing albums. Everybody would bet, and you wouldn't know from the commentary who was going to win because it depended. And you couldn't even put the needle where you wanted to on purpose,
right?
Because the grooves had a mind of their own,
right? And it was very hard to make a CD. An LP of that because there's 4 tracks then. But it really worked very well because people couldn't believe it.
Right. Okay. So quickly, we've done the first time you ever saw the name John Cleese, the Frost Report, movies. Let's fast forward to 85 to 2005 something. Give us the highlight from there.
85. Well,
what about LA? How come you ended up in LA?
Well, I wrote some plays. I played in the West End, and I wrote a film or two. We did Nuns on the Run with Robbie Coltrane, and we did, Splitting Hairs. My wife's American, and she'd been in England about 16 years, and we had a kid, and we thought, oh God, take our kids, Let's go to California. More fun to drive a kid to school in California.
Yeah, you're right, by the way.
By the way. So we had 30 years in London, and now we just had 30 years in LA. So my next 30 years, no.
By the way, never say never.
Never say never.
I tell you, if fun is your fuel, you can go on for a lot longer than people who don't have that in their fuel tank. Hockney famously lived in LA for a long time.
He did, just near us.
Did you hang out with Hockney?
Yes.
Because
he said... No, because he was next to Billy Connolly. And Billy was a great friend. He'd knock on the door, say, "It's Billy, I need a cup of tea." And
so have you been to Hockney's house? Have you dangled your tootsies in the pool that he paints?
Well, I wasn't near that. No, that was somebody else's house, I think. But he had his own studio.
Yeah.
It was literally next door to Billy Connolly's
with the balcony,
house.
the painted balcony, and all those plants and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Eric. You're a wonder. This show, and does your show, the show, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, by the way, which starts on September 10th through to September 27th. There's only, what are they? There's only 8 small but perfectly formed dates. The last one is the Royal Albert Hall. That's going to be a right laugh. Is a load of this stuff, is it in there? These stories that are flooring me.
Yeah, no, because I find that with the mock and roll, it's interesting to talk about some of the musicians you met.
Yeah.
I mean, I was pals with Bowie for a while. It was extraordinary. And do you know what we do? We met, and we both, he like northern dresses. We both played northern dresses. I said to her, "You can't wear green with that." He said, "Oh, I don't know. I put a bit of splash, a bit of glitter on." And we were on holiday with people, and we drove them crazy. The Americans, they just could not stand it. But we wouldn't stop because we were having so much fun.
You reminded me of Tom Courtenay, though. Didn't Tom Courtenay play the dresser?
He did, the dresser and the
Great.
Fame.
I bet you know him as well, don't you?
I don't know. Met Tom.
Oh, no. Great! We've mentioned somebody we love that Eric hasn't yet met.
Well,
he's probably going for tea with him after the show.
I only like comedians and guitarists. Really.
What about Steve Martin?
He's a banjo player.
Yeah, he's a big banjo player.
Yeah,
has he had a ding dong with you?
Oh yeah. We used to play banjo.
He's a brilliant banjo player.
He's a wonderful banjo player.
He's as good as he's maybe not the best in the world, but he's up there.
He's really good.
He can do it.
Yeah. I had dinner with him last week.
Yeah, of course you did. Where?
Where? Musso and Frank's.
Yeah, okay.
I love him. I've known him since 1980.
Wow.
He's very shy, and he was sent over. Michael said, "Will you look after him?"
Yeah.
He was going to be on the Parkinson show.
Yeah.
And he was very nervous. So but he's lovely.
Eric,
he's a genius.
It's great to chat. You're on fine form, aren't you?
I hope so.
You are. We didn't talk about the pancreatic cancer. It is like a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer is really extraordinarily serious and often doesn't end well. How did you escape? How did you beat the battle against?
Well, it was a strange story. I was writing a thing called Death the Musical, and if you never want to sell a thing, call it Death the Musical, because you try and go into people and say, forget about it, you know. And I went to my doctor and said, I need to get rid of a character quickly. He said, well, pancreatic cancer, every time, bang. So I said, oh, thank you very much. 12 years later, I'm looking at the screen with him, same doctor. I said, what's that? And he said, pancreatic cancer. So I laughed, because it's funny. You know, it is. I mean, how ironic is that? But it hadn't broken up. It was very early. He got it from a blood test. And so he had it, maybe a surgeon whipped it out. And now I help support them, because you can find it in blood test.
It's all about time, isn't it?
It is time, because you don't have long.
Yeah, if time is on your side, then you hold the ace hand against cancer. And
But you've got to be quick.
Yeah.
You've got to diagnose it early.
Well, Chris Rea also, he had pancreatic cancer as well, didn't he? And thank goodness you're both still here, which is amazing. Wow. And that was so you have regular checkups, do you?
Yeah, I have to do regular checkups, but I also like to support the charity. We have a big walks and things, and cheer people up. Well, and the numbers are rising of survivors. It's great. It's really good.
You're really good.
Oh.
You are really, really good. This is going to be great, isn't it? September 10th, 12th, 14th, 18th, 20th, 22nd, 24th, 27th, Birmingham, Brighton, Liverpool, Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Bournemouth, London Royal Albert Hall. What a night that's going to be! Oh my God! Is that going to be a different show to the others? Just because it's bigger, because it's London.
Yeah,
Let's get some mates in. You get some mates in.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Is there room for mates? Do they just slot in?
Well, you can bring them in now and again. Yes,
you can bring them in now and again.
Yeah.
Who might be with you on? No promises, but who might be around for that?
I might get the virtual band to appear, because they're on screen. I like having a band on screen, because you can turn them off. You know, it's very nice. You don't have to carry them around.
Yeah, you have to put up their smells or their moods or any of that, or their riders, any of that nonsense. All right, ericidle.com. Eric, great to see you, man. Keep doing what you're doing. I literally hope you live forever.
Oh, thank you.
So cool.
Oh,
Let's hear it for Eric Idle.
Thank you, Chris.
Wow. The first ever official international treasure. There you go.